Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Today, joining me, we have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
I am doing good.
Excellent. And Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
What is going on? Today, we are wrapping up Pirates of the Caribbean with Dead Men Tell No Tales. Obviously, we've been doing a month-long plus sequence of Pirates movies. We had to take last week off due to some personal stuff, but we are back to wrap up this scenario, and ultimately, it's probably going to work out quite nicely in terms of timing for some other things. Obviously, next week, The Mandalorian Season 3 ends, so that'll pretty much be what we're going to be talking about next week. And then right on the heels of that, we have Star Wars Visions coming out in a few weeks. So we'll go back and like we did with season 1 of Star Wars Visions, we'll kind of probably break that up into like episodes 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, and 9. Kind of do some That D Plus shows on that series coming soon. But before we get to that, Pirates of the Caribbean, we got to wrap this one up. Obviously we picked it because of our Pirates of the Caribbean month here. Our history lesson here, this one, the longest gap between Pirates movies. This one came out May 26th, 2017. This will probably be our most interesting sequence of like guessing the domestic gross and worldwide gross.
Right, yeah.
We've had it up in the upper echelons in recent ones. This is the first one that really comes out post MCUification of the box office,
Right.
and I think that shows. Most notably, the domestic gross was only $173 million, down from even the $241 million of the prior movie. And then the worldwide gross, well down from the last movie, had $1.046 billion, was down just under $800 million, with $795 million this time around. So
Only $790 million.
yeah, only $790 million.
Right.
But as expensive as these Pirates movies ended up being in
Right.
their later runs, that is highly likely that they weren't really profitable, or if they were profitable, they were just barely profitable. But so going off of that $173 million for domestic gross, where do you guys think this one landed in 2017 on the top box office?
We're in 2017, so that is what's 2017?
I'll go ahead and jump just so you have like some context of what that
Give
was.
us some
out.
context.
We'll go ahead and jump to the other releases of the time, and then we'll come back to this. So other releases of the time, we had the Power Rangers movie had come out in March.
Oh, I remember that.
March 24th.
It's still a crime that we never got a sequel to that movie.
It was,
I don't know if it was a crime.
I saw it.
It's
I
a
saw it
crime.
well after. Like I saw it on probably HBO Max or
That
something
movie's
like that.
great. That movie's a ton
And-
of fun, and it would have been better with a sequel, I think.
I think they did some
Disagree.
interesting things to set it up. I would have liked to have seen some of those characters get developed a little bit more, and also just to see how they tried to top themselves in terms of the Krispy Kreme
So
product
good.
placement.
It's so good.
I don't think it is good. That Krispy Kreme product placement is terrible.
It's
It's
think
so
it's
horrendously
intentionally, though.
bad.
That's
That
the
movie
point. Like, I
is
think
so
it's
bad on so
intentionally-
many levels.
No.
You think Power Rangers is bad? No,
Yeah,
definitely
I do.
not. It's fun.
Absolutely, I do.
Cameron. I think Cameron's thoughts on this movie are bleeding over a little bit already.
It's possible.
We also had the Scarlett Johansson Ghost in the Shell going up alongside The Boss Baby on March 31st.
Oh,
Fate of the Furious, April 14th, so the 8th Fast and Furious movie. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume
bad.
2 was May
Movie's
5th.
good.
Baywatch with Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron was
Zac
May
Efron,
25th. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, there the next day, May 26th. Followed by Wonder Woman, June 2nd, which is like, that's what immediately placed this as like, okay,
Yeah.
that's where I was in life. Because I remember seeing Wonder Woman in SF with all the Kind of Funny friends at Kind of Funny Live 3. Then we had The Mummy, June 9th. Cars 3 was June 16th. Transformers The Last Night, June 21st. The Big Sick, June 23rd, which I highlight here because it is ironically one of our most highly viewed videos because people just search for it and find it all the time, I guess, from our old That Wanna Be Film Class podcast. As also, we got copyright claimed on it from Amazon based off of the promotional image we used as a thumbnail. And I basically had to, I think this was at PAX East 2020, I had to basically like dispute the claim and say, this is a podcast about the movie. The only thing we use is that image, but nobody's going to confuse this for that movie. And then lastly on my list here, Spider-Man Homecoming, July 7th of 2017.
Did we watch Wonder Woman at KFL 3?
We did.
Maybe I didn't go to the movie. I just remember watching
it was the first time.
Incredibles 2 the next year at Prom.
Was it the first time everybody was at the Alamo, or was that the...
I think that's the first time we did things at the Alamo. We had done, like, the year before, I think, was...
Kabuki.
The couple years prior had been Kabuki. One of them was... X-Men Apocalypse.
That was KFL 2. KFL 1 was Age of Ultron.
I don't think
run.
that's right.
Yeah, it is.
We might not have done it KFL 1.
KFL 1 was Age of Ultron because that's where I met Greg Miller for the first time.
Oh yeah, that's right. I introduced you. I was like, "Hey, I've already met Greg, and I'm going to be doing a podcast."
And I was like, "I'm
here.
cool, just staying over here."
Cameron, and I shoved you into that.
Yeah, it was one of the best, one of the highlights of my life, getting to meet my hero, and then falling asleep and snoring in Age of Ultron, pissing everybody off.
There you go.
The amazing first impression I made to the entire Kind of Funny community.
There you go. Anyway, so with that extra little context in mind. What do you guys think?
That's a weird year for movies. I
think this movie made just by default might be number 8 domestic.
Number 8? Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't a lot of these don't scream massive box office successes to me, right? I think Power Rangers did okay. I think Ghost in the Shell did okay. Fate of the Furious is going to be ahead of it. Guardians is going to be ahead of it.
Those two are definitely blockbuster hits for the year.
Wonder Woman's probably ahead of it. I don't feel like The Mummy did that great.
It didn't. It did really badly. That's why they shelved the entire Dark Universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't... Big Sick did good for comedy, but did it do 173 million domestic
it was definitely indie.
Yeah, and so Spider-Man Homecoming. So I'm going to say domestically... in 2017, there's no Bond movie. I'm going to say it did number 6 domestic.
Number 6 domestic. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and because I think this will also shed some more light on the rest of this year. Number 1 that year was Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Oh, sneaky Trevor didn't. Yeah,
Get
sneaky. Yeah.
I was just giving you the movies around this in the summertime. Number 2. With so that first one was 517 million. Like it was domestic
a million
gross.
Years ago. Honestly, that feels like a whole other lifetime ago.
Beauty and the Beast, the live action remake, was number 2.
Was the second best domestically? Wow,
$504 million. Yep.
Jesus Christ!
That's never count out the Disney love. Lion King, a couple years later
3?
when they do that, ends up being bajillions of dollars.
Yeah, Cars 3 was massive because people were I think the only reason it didn't do better is because of how many people were badly burned on Cars 2, but Cars 3 was considered
Cars
a return to the Cars.
Yeah,
Cars proper.
No, so. you are very much misremembering.
I'm wrong.
Critically, Cars 3 is a much better film, but people were too burned. Cars 3 ends up being lower on our list. I'll highlight it down there. Number 3, the first of the movies that have been previously mentioned, Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that was going to do huge.
$412 million.
I'm a little surprised it did better than
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was there at number 4, $389 million. Everybody the DC fans showed out for Wonder Woman because they finally had a victory.
For sure.
Guardians was number 4, Spider-Man Homecoming number 5 with $334 million. It Chapter 1 It
really did ahead of Fate of the Furious.
$327 million there.
Dude, it came out at the perfect time too for horror stuff and whatnot, and the fact it was really damn good.
Yeah. Thor Ragnarok here at number 7, $311 million.
I'm surprised it only did number 7.
One of my favorite. Well, I think a lot of that is gonna. Yeah, no, because that's a lot of these films are towards the end of the year.
Yeah. Number 8, Despicable Me. 264 million.
Is it not in the top 10?
It is not in the top 10.
Hells to the yes.
We'll get to it.
Let's
number
fucking
9, Logan was $226
That's
million.
right. There were bangers that year, man. There were so many bangers.
Was it even in the top 10?
Fate of Furious here is at number 10 with 226. The thing that I think people forget, and we'll see that probably shift on the worldwide, is a lot of Fast and Furious money comes from like international box office. It comes from like China box office and stuff like that.
It is one of the most popular franchises overseas that is from the US.
You don't need to speak the English because they just go family a lot and vroom vroom and crashes.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like also they go all around the world, and it makes total sense why it's massive. The third film literally takes place in another country.
Yeah. Number 11, Justice League, $225 million.
That's right. That came out.
Number 12, Dunkirk, the Christopher Nolan film, $188 million.
Honestly, that movie's great.
So at $188 million, we're getting closer to the 173 here of Pirates. Number 13, Coco, $179 million.
Now that is a shame because that movie is beautiful.
It really is indeed. Number 14, the Lego Batman movie with $175.7 million. Just ahead of Get Out with $175.6 million.
So not even in the top 15 domestic.
Yep. Number 16, The Boss Baby with $175 million, pretty much flat. And then finally, at number 17, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, $173 million. I
think it's going to do better internationally. Yeah, I'm sure we're good.
I'll give you the yes, it does. Behind that, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle was $171 million. Kong Skull Island at 19 with $168 million. Hidden Figures, $167 million. And then Cars 3 at number 21, $153 million.
What a weird year for movies.
Yeah,
that's how movies coming out in the year used to be like. Though I think we're kind of like we just don't have that right now because of the pandemic.
Even further, like then we get to War for the Planet of the Apes, Split, Transformers: The Last Night, and Rogue One, a Star Wars story at number 25. Like a Star Wars movie. Pre-Solo, obviously, like we all really loved Rogue One, but it did not have the same cachet, obviously, that
The Last Jedi being number one
would later that year. Number 17 domestic gross that year, and then moving over to worldwide. Where do you guys think it fell? Now that you have like that kind of like scope and framework.
Number 20, slower.
You think it's lower worldwide?
He just said it's higher. He just said it was higher.
I did just confirm to Logan that it was higher. But
I thought you meant dollar-wise. I was like, yeah, of course it made more money worldwide.
I don't know. I feel like, we've already seen this. We've seen this play out a lot where I think a lot like Fast and Furious, pirates are movies that do really well internationally as well, historically. I think 12 is a good guess. But I'm gonna say one better, and I'll say 11.
All right. Number 1, Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yeah,
$1.3 billion. Beauty and the Beast stays at number 2 there. $1.26.
That's crazy.
billion.
I feel like I haven't heard anyone talk about Beauty and the Beast since 2017.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy to me.
The Lion King a couple years later would do the same thing, like make over $1 billion. Fate of the Furious jumps all the way up to number 3 on this list with 1.2.
And where was it at domestically?
Domestically, Fate of the Furious was at number 10. So that's the worldwide box office really helped that one. Despicable Me was at number 4. Mm-hmm. Jumanji jumps all the way up to 5 on this one.
That's really interesting too.
With $962 million. Spider-Man: Homecoming at number 6, $880 million. Mm-hmm. Wolf Warrior 2, which I'm guessing is probably like a Chinese release or something.
That is a Chinese film, yeah.
$870 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 at number 8 with $863 million. Thor: Ragnarok and Wonder Woman rounding out the top 10 at 9 and 10. $853 million, $822 million. Coco, number 11 here, $807 million. And Cameron was right on the money. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
It sounded really nice. Yeah, it sounded really 12, nice. Good job, Cam.
Then rounding out kind of some of the next ones there. It is at number 13. Justice League at 14. Logan at 15. Transformers: The Last Night at 16. Kong Skull
You're saying that
Island.
about Logan, right? Not Transformers: The Last Night.
Yeah, he's saying Logan.
I just say, yeah, Logan's great. I think it's such a good, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that nobody ever thinks that anybody
I've never
would ever say
seen
Transformers: The Last Night is good.
I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah. Kong Skull Island,
Mark
17,
Wahlberg.
The Boss Baby at number 18, Dunkirk at number 19, and War for the
Dunkirk's
Planet of
so
the
good,
Apes
too.
at number 20.
Also a really good movie.
The Mummy, it's probably its best performing, was number 23 worldwide, just ahead of Cars 3. So again, like Cars 3 did not reclaim the Cars glory.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I would argue there is no such thing as Cars glory,
I mean, Cars 3 is a much better movie than Cars 2.
without a doubt.
And Cars 1 isn't a bad movie. It's
Cars
just
1's
a very
fun.
it
Fine.
draws a lot of the like heart of what Pixar had really done up to that point away from it. But anyway, so yes, number 12 worldwide box office gross there. But yes, considering the heights that this movie had in its prior iterations, a sharp drop off there. Runtime is a nice brisk 2 hours and 9 minutes, even if it doesn't feel like it, which is the shortest of the series. In the Disney timeline of things, Pete's Dragon was August 12th of 2016, followed by Beauty and the Beast that had come out in March of 2017, March 27th. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales here, May 26th. A Wrinkle in Time was next, March 9th of 2018. And Christopher Robin with Ewan McGregor in there at August 3rd of 2018. Our director, another new crew behind this one, Joaquin Renning and Espen Sandberg, who together had their biggest claim to fame at this point was Marco Polo, 2 episodes of a Netflix series. And then Joaquin Renning would go on to direct the Maleficent sequel, Maleficent Mistress of Evil. The writer for this no longer, all the other movies have been Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. Terry Rossio is still attached to this one. Ted Elliott, nowhere to be found. I didn't really dig into what may have happened there, if he's retired or whatever at this point. But instead, Jeff Nathanson comes in, works on the screenplay, and it's a Jeff Nathanson screenplay and story by credits for Nathanson and Rossio. Jeff Nathanson's credits, his first big credit, Speed 2, Cruise Control. He also worked on Rush Hour 2 and 3.
Great movie.
The film Catch Me If You Can.
Great movie.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Complicated.
He was on the screenplay for that one. And then after this, he would go on to pen the screenplay, which this and Aladdin and even Beauty and the Beast, I'm I don't even know how you get screenplay credit for that, but he did Lion King, the screenplay on Lion King, because there's just so much the original film. So you got to, realistically, you should be crediting the original writer, but I'm pretty sure because of DGA or Writers Guild or Animation Guild rules,
right? Yeah,
new people have to be credited there. Our cast of characters: Johnny Depp returning once again, of course, as Captain Jack Sparrow, and also I think this is the first time he's credited as Captain Jack. I think is one of the trivia things I saw. I think everywhere else he's just been Jack Sparrow. I didn't go back and verify that.
Right,
it was listed as IMDb trivia. Javier Bardem makes his debut here as Captain Salazar, with Spanish language credits going back to 1974. His probably big breakout role came in No Country for Old Men. Then he would go on to be in things like Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Eat, Pray, Love, Skyfall, of course, where he... did he end up topping our list of Skyfall, of Bond villains, Logan? Do you remember?
He did.
He did, yeah.
He's so good. When the moment he takes out the prosthetic and the face, I still remember
his
being
introduction is still one of the best Bond introductions to his slow walk into focus and camera to unbutton Craig's shirt. It's great.
Yeah. Monologuing the whole time, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
He was in the film Mother with Jennifer Lawrence. He was in Dune and Being the Ricardos, and most recently Lyle Crocodile.
He in Dune?
Huh? He's in the the end of Dune. He's going to be a much bigger role in Dune Part 2. He's one of the sand people. He's the leader of the sand people.
He's the
He's
Fremen.
Daya's dad, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's in Daya's dad.
Yeah.
And he's the leader of the Fremen.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. Okay.
He will be in The Little Mermaid coming up. He's King Triton in that, which I did not. Either I did not know that, or I did not remember that. But yeah, he'll be the king in Little Mermaid, as well as Dune Part 2. Jeffrey Rush returning as Barbossa, of course. Brendan Thwaites here, making his debut as Henry Turner. Prior to this, he had been in the first Maleficent movie as Prince Philip. He was also in The Giver, which I include here because I remember reading that movie or reading that book in
love The Giver, love the book,
middle school, and yeah, really loving it. Don't think about it all that much, but like when it pops up, I'm like, oh yeah, like I remember that book, 7th or 8th grade Trevor really loving The Giver.
I think if I'm not mistaken, Taylor Swift is in the movie too.
She might be.
She is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. It is a perfectly fine movie. Jeff Bridges definitely carries that film.
Yes.
But it also has the Giver book is so nondescript about the world that they're in as far as like the idea of technology or whatnot, that the kind of like futuristic take that is done with this stuff, which is like totally fair and within the realms of like the book itself, was really like struck a lot of people as being like odd because they saw it more contemporary as far as like technology goes. I remember that movie vividly because my nephew walked out from the movie the kids were watching to the part where they euthanized the baby, and he asked everybody, why are they doing that to the baby? And it was one of the most like one of the moments where it's like, I don't know what to say to a child. And when everybody is like, I'm like,
spoilers for The Giver.
Yes. It's a major.
The book has got to be 30 years old.
I definitely don't even remember the book so much, let alone obviously. I never saw the movie. But
spoilers for a book that came out like 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. When that happens, like my nephew came out and everybody finally, I was like, it's pretend. It's not real. And he goes,
there you go.
Oh, okay. And like, it's true. It is pretend. It is not real because it's a movie, but.
All right. Anyway, other things Brenton Thwaites has been in. Most recently, Titans, where he's been playing Dick Grayson, and it was a whole meme a few years ago because he was a very dark, bitter, angry Nightwing Grayson who was like, "Fuck
was he
Batman.
the fuck Batman?" Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Kaya Scodelario, we'll say, is playing Karina Smith here.
Oh, she is in Maze Runner. Yeah,
she was in the Maze Runner movies, which I just learned there were 3 of them. She was in Maze Runner, The Scourge Trials, and Maze Runner: The Death Cure. I probably remembered that they had made a second Maze Runner. I did not know there was a third Maze Runner movie. I thought this was because this was the end of like the Hunger Gamesification era of things where Insurgent didn't even get all of its movies made or whatever.
Maze Runner is the first one's really good. I stand that first movie.
After this, she would go on to be in Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City in 2021 as Claire Redfield, which was a name I recognized. So I was like, I'm going to include that.
There you go.
I didn't remember this movie of Resident Evil being a thing, but
I believe Welcome to Raccoon City is an animated film.
I don't think it was based on what I was seeing.
Oh, it might not be. No, it might have been the one that Netflix put out.
Maybe, I don't know.
Or no, they put out the show.
They put out the show, yeah.
I don't know
with Lance Reddick and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kevin McNally returning once again as Gibbs. Golshifteh Farahani. I apologize if I completely butchered that name.
Sorry, she was also in Skins for 5 seasons.
Kaya was. I saw Skins and I saw like a lot of episodes there. I don't know this show Skins.
She's she's a minor character for the first 2 series, and then after that she's the main character until that first I think till like series 5. And then she leaves the show.
Golshifteh Farahani playing Shansa, has a number of credits going back to 1998, including Rosewater, which was the Jon Stewart-led film featuring Gael Garcia Bernal. And then she would go on to be in the Rooster Teeth series Genlock.
She's the evil witch in the movie?
She's the evil witch in the movie, yeah.
So this is what that reminded me of, is the fact that she just disappears from the entire back half. I'd completely forgotten that.
Yep.
And I'm sure Cameron's gonna be annoyed about that, but it's fine.
My annoyance more is they're so like, we need to kill this witch with like Karina's character, and then they go and enlist the help of this actual witch.
That's the problem I have.
Yeah.
That's the exact problem. I don't like, she disappears the further back half of the movie. I don't care.
Yeah. It's pretty much like the Tia Dalma effect, but 3 movies on. David Wenham as Scarfield, the like big bad British officer in this one, with credits going back to 1987. He's been in Moulin Rouge. He was, of course, Faramir in the Lord of the Rings films.
Yep.
Go on to be in 300, which, apart from Lord of the Rings, is like the thing I always think of him in, as like the very eloquent Spartan that tells the story. Australia. He worked with Johnny Depp in Public Enemies, like one of our people from like Scrum, the next one from last week. He was also in the Iron Fist Netflix series.
Yep.
And then following this movie, he'd go on to be in the Peter Rabbit films as a voice in there. And he was in last year's Elvis as Hank Snow, the like headliner that basically gets like completely overtaken by Elvis's popularity. I was like, yeah, he was in that. Yep, there we go. Stephen Graham returning from the last film as Scrum. And then what I have dubbed the Back Again crew. We have, of course, Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley popping up for little cameos in this one. We have Angus Barnett and Giles New as the British officers from that first movie, and then the British officer crewman turned pirates at the end of the movie from part 3, and then they've just returned here as part of Barbossa's crew, Mulroy and Murtaugh in this one, and then Martin Kleba returning as Marty, the little pirate in this one. I don't know if I pulled it in the trivia. It might be in there, but basically they did reach out to like a whole bunch of the old people, including the Pintel and Righetti performers, as well as even Cotton. I tried to get them back, but they were unavailable. So these are the guys that they were able to get back for this one. And then we have just why is this a thing cameo from Paul McCartney as Uncle Jack.
It is not great. It is not fun.
It's fun.
It's
fun.
bad.
It's fun.
It's bad from top to bottom. It's so damn bad.
Like, you can't.
It's fine.
Cameron's like loathing of this movie is not at all being hidden at this point. But also, you can't really gauge Cameron's thoughts on that because he also hates the Beatles.
That's true. I do hate the Beatles.
Like, just
you
innately.
hate the Beatles?
We've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
I assume it's so traumatizing for you, you block it out because this is like the 3rd time this has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hate the Beatles. The Beatles are, and part of the problem with the Beatles is like I get the influence that they had, but by the time I listened to the Beatles, I had been influenced by so much more music that in turn was also influenced by them that I just found them super derivative. And also, like half that band just sucks ass as people. So.
Which half, Cameron? Which half are you going to shit on of the Beatles?
Oh, just John Lennon.
Well, that's only a quarter.
No, he had a big enough ego that he counts as half the band.
All right. Trivia here. The directors have a cameo as the severed heads in the guillotine basket. They are the directors Joaquin Renning and Espen Sandberg. At 2 hours and 9 minutes long, this is the shortest running time of all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, as I mentioned earlier. In the flashback scene, Jack Sparrow is seen on a ship called the Wicked Wench, which actually is the Black Pearl. Gets renamed when Davy Jones brings it back from the depths after it had been set ablaze in like the backstory that we didn't get in the 3rd movie.
Dumb.
But that all happens in the book Pirates of the Caribbean: The Price of Freedom, making the book canon, according to this IMDb trivia bit. After failing to return for On Stranger Tides, Disney reached back out to Martin Kleba, Lee Ehrenberg as Pintel, Mackenzie Crook as Righetti, David Bailey as Cotton, Angus Barnett as Mulroy, and Giles New as Murtaugh to return for this movie. Only Martin Kleba, Angus Barnett, and Giles New were able to make it work within their schedules. Keira Knightley had ruled out a return to the franchise after her former co-star Orlando Bloom suggested he would be open to returning. Knightley had stated that to be part of the franchise was an amazing time in her life, but as it took 5 years of her life, she just couldn't see her going back. However, after fans heard of Bloom's return, they demanded the producers bring back Knightley as well, resulting in her scenes being filmed at the very last minute. It's included another piece of trivia, but basically all of her stuff was shot in a single day.
Yeah,
and then actors Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, and Kevin McNally are the only 3 actors to appear in all 5 installments of the Pirates franchise as, of course, Captain Jack Sparrow, Captain Hector Barbossa, and Joshua E. Gibbs, respectively. All right. So how does this one hold up? We're here 6 years on. Cameron, I already know your thoughts, and you've already been letting some of them slide. So I'm curious, Logan, I want to know your thoughts first. What did you think of this movie?
I definitely don't think it's the worst Pirates movie. We'll start there. Cameron seems surprised. I'm surprised that he thinks it's the worst. I think the movie is flawed, but I think it's a lot of fun, right? And again, Trevor was with me for 25 episodes of that Bond show, right? And the 2-part rating system I use for any movie is the movie good? And if the answer is yes, fantastic, that's done. And if the answer is no, is it at least fun? And I think the movie is fun, right? Like, I think the movie has a sense of fun and levity to it that Pirates 2, for example, didn't, which I think was just, it is my least favorite Pirates movie we've had so far. I think it is just sort of a slog for 2.5 hours because there is no payoff to that. You don't get any kind of great action sequence. And I didn't like 4 last week, where you two seemed to like it quite a bit more. I would pick this over 4 for sure. So, I would probably have this as my 3rd favorite Pirates movie. Spoiler alert for an hour from now, we rank them all. Yeah. But I think, it's below 1 and 3 because I liked 3 more than you guys did, I think a little bit. And obviously it's below 1, but I think the movie's fun. It's definitely flawed. Is it the 3rd best put together movie in the series? Maybe not. They sort of completely disregard any rules of reality or gravity with them fucking pulling off half a building and dragging it along a street for 100 miles. But it doesn't really matter. That's dumb. Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann's kid fucking sucks, but also he's sort of I think a fun shitty character. And the de facto Will and Elizabeth relationship they try to have here isn't as good, obviously, but it's still better than I think the mermaid and priest relationship in 4 at the very least. And yeah, I think it's silly. I think it's a silly movie, right? There are moments that are great, right? I think the sequence at the end of the film of them getting to the island and then just it is just celestial stars that make up the rocks. There's a really pretty shot of them walking and it's overhead. And I think the movie still has these really great moments of cinematography. And yeah, I think it's sort of a slapdash, silly, goofy movie. But at least Jack isn't having tea with the King of England, which is so incredibly done for.
I'll say, just to jump in on one of my thoughts on that, just off of that, one of my biggest thoughts of this movie is I don't think we've ever seen Jack as pathetic as he is through this entire movie. Yeah. So to a degree, yeah, I liked that element. I think they course corrected too much, sure. So that he's just a sad sack the entire movie and doesn't get any wins really. But yeah, it is at least he's not meeting with the king this time around or whatever, or he's too drunk on his own power.
I think it's really fun because they sort of lean in. I mean, they very much adopt this is years after we first saw him in Black Pearl, right? This is 16 years later from that point now, right? This is a full grown kid that Will and Elizabeth have had now. And I think it's sort of interesting to be what would Jack be 20 years after Black Pearl? And there are a lot of different possible answers to that question. Obviously, you can kind of splinter off with, but the idea that 20 years later he's this is sort of interesting, right? That he doesn't get good really, that he doesn't really kind of settle down or become more redeemable or anything like that. And I especially like it with the contrast of him and Barbossa, right? Where Barbossa is the king of the pirates, basically, right? Has a fleet of pirate ships, is just regaled in military robes and this fancy wig and medals and all this kind of stuff, and is just happy and resplendent. And Jack is having to sell his compass to get a drink, right? And I think that juxtaposition is really fun and interesting, right? Like, it's not necessarily the direction I would have taken Jack, but I like them sort of almost being bold enough to make the star of the series just kind of, be really down in his luck for the entire film until like the very end. He kind of gets like his moment of finally being the captain of the Black Pearl again for the first time in 4 movies since the end of the first Pirates movie. And like, the thing I said to Shrav too when we were watching it was that in a lot of ways, like the ending of this movie feels like the ending we should have gotten in 3. Like, it is Jack finally back with the Black Pearl. It is Will and Elizabeth actually getting to be together, right? It is like the resolution of Barbossa's story in a lot of ways, right? Like, it is sort of like the culmination of these characters' arcs that none of them really were good in 3, right? Like, that was like kind of one of my big critiques with 3 is that like I thought the movie was a lot of fun, a lot of great action sequences, but then like Jack's ending was kind of disappointing, right? Like him marooned basically again. Will and Elizabeth, we obviously talked a lot about, was not very good, and even Barbossa, I didn't really like his ending in 3. And here, I think all 4 of those characters get endings that feel more deserved of kind of the arcs they've been on throughout this series. It feels like a proper ending for those characters in a way that it didn't in 3, and 4 was just like a weird stopgap, I think, in terms of the characters' arcs.
Mm-hmm. Cameron, go ahead and
hit me.
Dive in with your thoughts.
I wanted to make sure that I approached this with a bit more of intelligence. I was originally just going to go in hot, but I feel like I've been cooled off quite a bit as we've been talking about the film for a little bit. Cool. And so I'm just going to kind of approach this. These are the things I liked about them. These are the things I think the film is good. One, I liked a lot of the lore. I like the flashback to Jack's history. I feel like I think Salazar as a pirate hunter is an interesting concept, and I think that bleeds into, I think the premises for all the characters, like if you wrote down the premise for all these characters, I like their premises. I like Henry as somebody who's tortured from having a broken home because of curses and learning everything he can about curses in order to hopefully one day find the thing that can break his dad's. I like the idea of, what's her name? Her character's name?
Karina.
I like Karina as this orphaned intellectual who, like, they could have done something really cool where it's like, it isn't that you're quote unquote you're not an actual witch. You're an intellectual and you're politically dangerous. Like, they could have done that actually, and they don't, and it's bad, but I'll get into that later. I love the premise of that idea of like, she is like a student of the, like, quote unquote, the school of Galileo. Like, the idea of that, like, that's cool. You have, like, there's a lot of really cool lore stuff here. You have, like, also her backstory with and a connection to Barbossa. You have Barbossa where he is committed to being a pirate, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't had regrets along the way. And as this is kind of like his, spoilers for the film, of course, but of course you're watching this, you've already seen it. The kind of like fulfillment of his story. And like
the fact that he ends up getting a more like thorough arc than Jack ever has over the course of these 5 films.
And I like that. I like that Barbossa is an interesting character of having this arc throughout all 5 films.
And it's most of it is thrown together in like 10 minutes. Comes out of nowhere that like, that he's really the secret father kind of thing. Yeah, then he, realizes that and makes the heroic sacrifice for her and stuff like that.
I think the biggest problem with it is like, it's a good, like the premises are all great on paper. And I'll get into the bad. I just want to say the last thing I like is I like the ending. I love Will and Elizabeth finally being able to reunite. Yes. God, I love their embrace. I love the kiss. I love everything about their like, oh, they finally get together. So what's the thing they do? They get to sleep in the same bed. Like, something they've been denied their entire relationship over 20 plus years. They get to sleep in the same bed. And that's something sweet and nice. And also I like the idea and implication that, like, just because the curse is gone doesn't mean that there isn't something left over in connection to it, because the Poseidon's trident being broken, solving all curses, kind of doesn't make all the sense in the world. And so maybe there are ramifications for breaking all the curses, because maybe the curses were holding worse things back or something.
Yeah, did you watch the post-credit scene, Logan?
Yeah, it's real dumb.
Yeah.
Oh, it's dumb. I like the idea of it, though. I like the idea of implications of this curse having lingering effects, maybe.
Yeah, somehow Davy Jones is back.
Yeah, it
and
doesn't
back
make
in
any
tentacle
sense
form.
to
Is it that Davy
yeah.
Jones is back, or is it like there's something that cool could be done with that? And the premise is interesting on paper, but and I'm going to get down to it. The execution of this movie is so damn bad. It took some really cool ideas and nuggets of, I think, actually like really smart things and smart characters. And I think, and I'll just go through the order. First off, scene order. If you had put together some of these scenes in different places, like if the movie had started with the tale of Salazar and that whole thing happening, and then it goes into, oh, it turns out it's like, oh, did Salazar die? And then it's like, no. And then it shows that he's like talking to somebody who's like the last man alive. And he goes, and it plays into the idea that dead men tell no tales. That could have been cool. They don't do that. They save that for like way later in like towards the back half of the film where he explains it to Barbosa.
Into the movie, but it's later.
Like you're not clear to me on what you're trying to convey there, because it does start with him. I mean, like obviously the real start is we get the little prologue with, you know, young Henry seeing Orlando Bloom, but then we do cut to older Henry on the ship and him being the, you know, Dead Men Tell No Tales introduction that we get to Salazar. You're saying that you would have liked to have seen the
flashback with
Spaniard
young Jack,
Salazar pre-cursed and death defied, that version
at the beginning, I think is what he's
and
saying.
I think that also would help sell the effects of the crew better, because our introduction to the crew, to Salazar's crew, is half of them aren't even really there.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's
I
like,
won't deny that.
it's a cool idea. These half blown up blown to ashes, like zombie ghosts. Like that's
ghosts,
cool.
basically. Yeah.
Like they're ghosts, but like, and the idea that it's ghosts, that's cool. It's just, and once again, it goes back to execution. It could have been cooler.
I think, I mean, to that, I'll just say, like, I think it is, I think the intent is they are ghosts. And I think it's an interesting visual interpretation of a ghost compared to like every other visual interpretation where it's like, you know, see-through phantasm kind of thing. Like the fact that this is, you know, spectral forms of whatever their body looked like when they died via that explosion, I think is an interesting visual. In particular, I mean, one of my favorite elements of this movie is I love the design of Salazar and the like the feel that he's like just always underwater and his hair's kind of always doing that like underwater floating kind of thing is just like that's way more visually interesting. Like as much as I loved Blackbeard in Ian McShane's performance, like this is going back to like the Davy Jones style of like bad guy villain kind of design. So I really enjoyed that.
You know, I just think that I didn't like it until I saw Salazar when he was like a human. And then the kind of like the picture of what they were trying to do with all of that made sense to me all of a sudden. So like, I just think it's down to sequence of events. I think that cinematography, this movie has some really, like, I'm just not a fan of a lot of its cinematography, like the cinematography choices. Scenes sometimes feel choppy. It's hard to follow. Like there's lighting issues in like some big scenes. The fight between the Pearl and Salazar ship, where the lighting is so bad, I can't, and like the framing is so bad, in my opinion. I'm not a professional cinematographer, but in my opinion, from what I saw, the idea that you have this, like the woman on the bow of Salazar's ship coming to life and like attacking, and I can't tell because of the way that the framing of this is done and the lighting, I can't tell which is the giant person and which is Salazar and which is Jack in half of those scenes.
I don't necessarily know if I chalk that up to cinematography so much as CG, because all of that is CG. So I don't know if there was actually a person behind a camera shooting any of that in terms of like physical.
And maybe not as far as like with practical stuff around them, but there are choices being done from from an actual way that they're framing a shot that a cinematographer would have been involved in. And if they didn't have a cinematographer when they're putting in the effects going on, and so some of these like the scaling is weird. Okay, but moving on to now the writing. The writing for a lot of the dialogue feels really, really rough. It feels really not great. It doesn't feel normal. Like, people don't talk this way. And some of the lines are character descriptions that are then turned into a frame of dialogue. A great example of this is when Henry goes up to the captain of the ship at the beginning. He tells the captain, I know everything. I have spent my entire life learning everything about every curse that there's ever been. And it's like, okay, that's like a description of his character. And you just said it. There's no, and also it shows him taking on like 6 professional sailor soldiers. And Trevor, I loved it because Trevor was like, why didn't somebody just pull out a gun and like shoot him? And then all of a sudden he's like they lined up like 6 muskets on him.
Yeah. I'm gonna highlight that, like, the script I think is incredibly forgettable. The fact that like you're honing in on this is just, okay, you hated this movie from the jump. That's the takeaway that I have from this, because I don't think that is a particularly egregious line or anything like that.
No, I'm saying that is an example of things that we see later on.
I mean, well, you're using it as an example to make your point that like all these character dialogue is character descriptions. I think he is trying to make the case, hey, we don't want to go in there, and he's explaining,
because I know about this.
I know why we don't want to go in there. I think part of it is telling like us, the audience, that he has done all of this studying as well.
It's doing both, right? It's doing 2 things at once, right?
In that regard. But yeah, I think it didn't strike me as a particularly bad, like,
yeah, I agree,
script.
I don't want to belabor the point at this point. I said what I said. I stand by it 100%. And you guys don't agree, that's fine. Moving on. Acting. Johnny Depp can't keep the Jack talk for an entire scene. He slips out, especially towards the earlier scenes. He slips out of his Jack talk, or he goes into a version of it that's way higher pitched than normal. And after seeing these movies back to back like this, it felt so off-putting. And it's like, it really has been in the movies. It's been 20 years, in the making of these, it's been 10.
There's 6 years between this and 4, I think, right?
6 years.
I mean, the first one came out in 2003, and then this was 2017, so 14 years total. But yes, 6 years since the last.
Okay, movie. So in 6 years, I just felt like there was I have issues with a lot of the acting. Let me go ahead and pull back up my list here.
I don't want to, while you're doing that, I didn't want to like delve too deep into this, especially with all like the real world like ramifications and stuff that have happened since. But one of the trivia things is this movie was basically happening as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were going through their divorce. And according to the IMDb trivia, quote, he was chronically late to the set to the point where it ate into the schedule, as the set often came to a halt for several hours at a time. Got to the point where a production assistant was hired just to wait outside Depp's house and announced that he was awake when they saw the lights inside come on. So like there was clearly some off-camera stuff happening, going on in his life as well, that is probably playing some sort of role into that.
That's fair. Yeah, I said what I said earlier about the CGI with Salazar's crew. Oh, and then my last note about it is the lovers have barely a simmer of any chemistry, and just like they have all of these bits, and I don't feel like any of the bits land.
Mm-hmm.
So as I predicted when I was talking with Cameron about this, I'm not nearly as like malicious on it as Cameron is. I figured this was going to be like an inverse of last week, where I'm going to side more with Logan on this one than Cameron, and I do. I think I will agree that I like a lot of things in this movie more in idea than maybe execution, but I still like,
sure,
even going to like that idea of Jack is very pathetic in this movie. An element of that is they learned the lesson and started to make Jack more of a supporting character again in this movie. And Henry and Karina, while not the most interesting and compelling, especially in comparison to Will and Elizabeth, are more of the like the ones driving the plot and the action forward towards
even Barbosa.
This, yeah,
and a much bigger role here, yeah.
So yeah, they're more taking the lead, and Jack Sparrow is just kind of like along for the ride for a lot of this, and you know that I think that doesn't work as well in execution, because Sparrow isn't like as interesting in this, and because he's like just so like just having the worst luck of ever, and it's not necessarily like it could have been described, and I think maybe they even like throw a line or two towards it of like, oh, his luck is like the result of a curse or something, but they don't really solidify that in a meaningful way to really justify why he's just so bad.
Right.
But yeah, I do love, as you kind of touched on, Logan, the inverse of like Barbossa's been riding high since he took the Queen Anne's Revenge. And he's like, his whole fleet has been out there just making him money after money after money. He's got like a little orchestra in his cabin, kind of like entertaining him and all that stuff. Like this, while it's, you know, a far cry from the Barbossa we initially met, it also somehow feels like the culmination of what that Barbossa character would have been had he never been cursed in that first movie.
Right.
Like this is the life he would have wanted to lead. He, you know, he is a pirate. He wants to live with his riches. He doesn't want to retire off in some island somewhere. And so like, yeah, he ends up becoming kind of the lead, especially given like where his story is going to end. Admittedly, like, yeah, the script is weak in terms of they don't really do anything to set up, like, the Barbossa reveal as Karina's father comes out of nowhere in the third act, whereas they could have had a scene or two of Barbossa lamenting his, you know, past loves and whatever earlier in the film if they wanted to actually not have it feel like it comes out of nowhere. But at the same time, like, I buy into it enough that like when he sacrifices himself for his newly
Jeffrey
found
Rush
daughter,
is a great actor. I think he does a lot, just like with his like facial expressions in those scenes too. Right?
Yeah.
Like, did I think when they first kind of teased it that they would give us more time for the actual reveal? Sure. I didn't think it would happen 30 seconds later with Jack. Like, enough to where like that moment happened with Quinn. I was like, ooh, is he her dad? And then he was like, or is it like, does he know her dad or something? And then it's like when he went up to Jack, he's like, what if Jack is related to her somehow? And then it's just like, so she's your daughter, huh? And I was like, oh, we're doing it right now. Okay, cool.
I felt
fine.
Jeffrey Rush is such a great actor. He's such a great actor that the moment his face looked unlike anything Barbossa ever looks like. Barbossa even being shot and dying is a completely different kind of like shock than he has in that moment. And hearing, and like, I love that how he's just like, and he like the explanation, it's like, I didn't want her to like, I gave her the book because it had a ruby on it and I thought that would pay for stuff. I didn't imagine that and I love that, like, Jeffrey Rush does such a great job of, I think, elevating what really would have been like a terrible moment into one that was believable, like his reactions, his actions afterwards, his interaction with Jack afterwards just sold that to me. Like, before they even announced he was her father, I was like, oh man, he's her dad. Because when he mentions her dad might have been a thief, and she like gets vicious, and you can see the hurt in his face as she like basically like threatens him about like being mean about her, like saying nasty things about her dad, and it's just like I think that's her. I think he's the dad.
Yeah, I think the order of operations when we were watching it was Barbossa and Karina have the scene. Then as Barbossa's walking across the ship, I was like, I was not expecting the like reveal of Barbossa as her dad. And then they immediately have that scene with Johnny Depp. And I'm like, oh yep, that confirms it.
I also like it because throughout so much of that film until that point, you have Karina keep talking about like her dad gave her this to like follow the things he couldn't finish. And I like in that moment you realize that like that was all just headcanon she made. And that feels real to what a kid who is left with only one thing from either parent, and it is this book, and they just sort of invent like, he gave it to me because it's got a purpose, because there's a reason he gave this to me. And in reality, she completely misses the reason he gave her that book. But it obviously ends up being way more to her benefit that she misread it. And like, I love that. That feels very much like what a like, young child who grows up with this book would think and would do with it. And so that also feels very earned and very real to her character.
Yeah. To one of the other elements that I think both of you touched on, of those two, of Henry and Karina, there's part of me that really likes that, like, the focus of their relationship is not romantic. It's similar to Cameron and I talked about this in our Super Mario Brothers like spoiler cast, and without getting into spoilers, like there isn't a ton of like Mario and Peach flirtation that happens in that movie. There's like a little bit, but it's much more like they're both on a mission. And much like in this, Henry is on a mission to save his dad. Karina is on a mission to like fulfill this headcanon promise that she's made to her father. And so like neither of them are really focused on like a budding relationship or flirtation between the two. Like they do have it a little bit here and there, but I think it's very much like the back burner of their relationship as characters to one another. So I like that. I like that it wasn't just like a retread of Will and Elizabeth. Basically, I like that it was a different flavor, much like the guy and the mermaid in the last one. Like they're finding new ways to have like the ingenues kind of like have their love story, and this it was through like similar daddy issues.
The great unifier of broken children, daddy
go.
issues.
Yeah. That was
really good.
I really loved in addition to like the other elements of the Salazar stuff I love Salazar's ship and like the way that just kind of like like extends like a
almost
crab
like a
or something
coming
and,
out of the water, right? Yeah,
and just like engulfs its prey, its ships. I think that is a new flavor of big bad ethereal ships compared to the Dutchman or Queen Anne's Revenge that we'd seen in the past. So like I really liked a lot of those sequences. It was interesting, especially like I looked it up after the fact, because when we get the like flashback to young Johnny Depp, I was like, where did this come out in relationship to Captain America Civil War, which I feel is like the first time Disney really did this like de-aging a character based on like like when they did it with Robert Downey Jr., doing like the flashback to young Robert Downey Jr. I was like, and sure enough, Civil War came out like a year before this. So it's just the same tech they're pumping into, in this case, Pirates of the Caribbean, to get a Benny and June era Johnny Depp on the ship, and we get the origin of Jack Sparrow.
Wait, that's actually Johnny Depp in that scene?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think that. I thought it was like a young actor.
It is. Sorry, it is. I mean, from the in behind the scenes stuff, it is. Yeah, it is. It's what they did with like Tarkin in Rogue One and stuff like that. They had another actor on set, but they digitally de-aged and like put Johnny Depp's performance on another actor. And there's also in a like a kind of a blink and you'll miss it thing, like Teague, aka Jack's dad, is there. Like I don't think you see what's his butt of the
Keith
Rolling
Richards.
Stones. Yeah, Keith Richards. You don't see him, but like they do suggest that his likeness was used and de-aged. You certainly see his like hat and attire in one of the shots of the not yet Black Pearl sailing away and stuff. So that was like an interesting thing, but also this feels from a different movie. The sequence where they're gonna like where Jack Sparrow gets married or is about to get married. Could have completely done without that. I think that's a terrible sequence, and for all the wrong reasons. But it's reminiscent of like the cannibal stuff from the second movie, and it's just like, nope, we didn't.
It's really random. Like I thought this would be like the final like spot almost. They like stumbled onto it by accident. It's like, nope, we're just here for like a brief 10-minute detour, and then we're right back out here. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yep, we're here to establish that they can't go on land. The bad guys can't go on land. Okay, well then stay here. And they're like, no, we can't stay here. We have to get to the treasure or whatever. And it's like, all right. But they do, bust out the pearl. I like. Part of me likes the idea that the pearl just is a shrinky dink and just needed some like real water. But I think it's also like tied into it needed the magic sword from Barbossa, which also like earlier on I was confused. I think this is a weakness in the script and the writing. Like why Barbossa didn't have the magical powers that obviously Blackbird did with that sword, because I feel like his ship should have been able to put up at least some kind of fight against the Silent Mary, as I believe Salazar's ship is called. But like they're just completely overtaken, and so I was like, oh, does he just not even have that? Did they dropped so many things from the last movie? I was like, did they just drop that and he's just off on his own other adventure? Oh no, he brings out the sword and uses it to break the curse on the Black Pearl. Cool, fine. But yeah, I will say, like, I enjoyed the action sequence of the end as well. In the like. I don't know if maybe I'm just a sucker for like a parting of the seas kind of visual. I will say, to Cameron's point, a lot of this movie, as most of these Pirates movies have been, shot way too dark and all that stuff. And
Sure.
it's all too dark to hide seams and CG and stuff like that. Like, I get the realities and the practicality of it. I don't think it's good.
They've all been too dark outside out of the first one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe 3's an exception, but otherwise they've all been too dark.
So I think that scene would have been, more engaging if it had been like more brightly lit and it had been happening more in like, bright sunshine coming down to this to the bottom of the sea, as opposed to like a cloudy day. But it's still like an interesting visual, especially when you have the undead army there, like watching on from behind the walls of water.
That was a cool, yeah.
And then if when Jack, I think, gets swung through the water at one point and like knocks one of them into land, they just disintegrate and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, like this movie had a lot of like interesting ideas that I liked. I'm with Cameron, not nearly as vehemently in a lot of the execution wasn't great, but this felt like they were trying to go back and recapture magic from the original. They were trying to do more of a formula of the original film. They miss in a lot of ways, but like it didn't become so up its ass and as the second and third movies did. And then like I will say, like, this movie doesn't have a great sequence akin to like the mermaid sequence that we got in the last one. So I think it is missing on that front. But overall, I was having a much more enjoyable time on this one than I probably did for the last few. So yeah.
I also think that we each kind of talked about him separately, but like I think Salazar is a really interesting villain. Like his, he is pure rage, right? Like, is it sort of silly that he came back to life purely because of his anger? Maybe, but like once you get past it, like that being the fuel that motivates him is really interesting. So much so that like at the very end, when the water is coming in, he completely deserts all of his men just for the chance to get revenge on Jack, right? And there's a great shot of like his like main lieutenant guy just like kind of holding his hand out as the water like smashes into him, because Salazar's like jumped on the anchor and left. And like I think his own story of like, the perils of uncontrollable like rage and revenge and anger kind of blinding you to everything else. Like he ultimately became no better than any of the pirates that he had hunted down over the years. Right. And I think like all the things that he bemoaned about like what a pirate's life is, he sort of ultimately became. And I think that arc is really interesting. And again, maybe the best arc we've had for a pirate's villain since Davy Jones in 2 or Barbossa in 1, right? Like, I think it's a really great arc for the main bad guy. And I think, we've had a series of villains over these films who have kind of risen and fallen over time, you know what I mean? But I think Salazar is one of the strongest because his connection with Jack is like so personal, both in terms of like being there at the inception of like who Jack is as we know him, and also because like he does not want treasure. He does not give a damn about the trident at all. He couldn't be care less about that. Like all he cares about is just getting revenge on Jack. And that's sort of a unique twist after 5 films in the series, like the villain not trying to chase a treasure like Indy is, right? In the like that kind of series, just wanted to kill him. And that's the only thing he cares about. And I think Javier Bardem does a great job with it. I think he kind of has this like weird, almost like Jekyll and Hyde element to him of like being really put together, and then just like he'll just like snap in these like outbursts of like anger and like kind of unhingedness.
When
and like swing back and forth, I think really good.
When the pitch comes out of his mouth, he's so angry that literally like pitch goop is just like spurting from his lips, and
good. It's so
he's such a good actor that like he just makes the spittle seem menacing in a way. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Also, the way he taps on his cane or his sword or whatever to like signal kill another person. I think he has a lot of fun with that. I will say to all the Salazar stuff. Internationally, this film was very in most markets referenced as Pirates of the Caribbean: Salazar's Revenge. Don't know why.
Would have been so much better.
I mean, like it's certainly a more fitting title. Obviously, Dead Men Tell No Tales being so innately tied to the ride and whatnot. That's, I'm guessing, why they went with it here. But I also do think that probably hurt its box office take a little bit of like that's just a bad title for a movie. But I do I like also how they incorporated that into the story. I agree. I like it is like
there's like a reason for it being
he always leaves one survivor because dead men tell no tales. So
but also it's the fact that he tells these stories and spins these stories and he's a dead man. It's that the duality of it that's just really great.
Indeed. But he can't tell a tale, yet he tells a tale. He tells multiple tales. He tells the tale of his origin to Barbossa, while Barbossa uses that to buy him time to miraculously see the dying gull. Really good. I got to throw that on here. I forgot to throw that in as
great name.
Ship names in this one.
Also, shout out to we're gonna make you captain, okay? And then it's just like boom.
That was
great. That got me real hard.
In like favorite moments, that was like the one moment that Cameron was laughing uproariously. Is like, all right, you're gonna be captain now, and then just a cut to him getting the crap kicked out of him. Yeah. Cameron popped real hard for that.
I cracked up real goddamn hard on that one.
Also, a little bit after that, two of them in the cell, and them like ripping off his toenail.
Yeah, I could have done with that.
Like, I don't want to be captain anymore. Yeah.
That was the body horror grossness akin to like, all right, the guy's toe just snapped off in the cold from a couple movies back. I did not need to see gross pirate feet. In that vein, any other moments anybody wants to highlight, either favorite moments or Cameron, in case you have just a bunch of moments you want to go back and shit on?
I want to stay positive. The thing about it is like there's nothing about this film like in a single scene that like I detest or I hate. I think my biggest anger about it is like the missed opportunity to really like successfully recapture it with just really poor execution across the board. That being said, Will and Elizabeth reuniting, I said at the top, it's one of my favorite parts of this movie. The scene where Jack is it's the slow-mo as he's defeated Salazar and as he's walking, and just that slow-mo of just like barely giving a fuck that Salazar's about to like sail into his doom. And then what I really liked about that moment was one, it's
that young Jack?
Young Jack, yeah. Okay. Young Jack specifically at what I think should have been the beginning of the movie, but was towards the middle. I love that scene, especially because we get to see it's like the moment he really felt like he became Captain Jack was he does this, and his crew, in honor of him becoming captaining the ship, pay him tribute, and you see the iconography that makes Jack Jack. So Captain Jack Sparrow, not Jack the pirate, not Jack the kid, like that was the first mate on that ship, but really Captain Jack Sparrow being born in this moment, and it's born from that moment of triumph. And also, if you notice behind him, there's a guy who seems to be a little bit older in a fancy coat with the same goddamn hat. I swear to God, it's young Barbossa.
Yeah, so I had the same thought, and like they never like reference it, and like because I kept waiting for when Salazar told the story to Barbosa, I was like expecting Barbosa to then tell it to someone else and be like, and I was there that day. And they never say that. And I'm always like, what a kind of a letdown. I just want like some sort of like, yeah, that was Barbosa.
And I think it would have been cool if like the person who first says, if that was the beginning of the movie, and then the thing that cuts to it is like if that kind of ends that scene is young Barbosa coming up and being like, what did the pirates say? Like to say what direction are we head? What be our heading, Captain? And like that's the first time he's called Captain is by Barbosa, and it kind of like cements that this is a very tumultuous long-term relationship between the two.
Right.
So I hadn't thought about that. Like I do remember seeing it and being like, is that supposed to be young Barbosa? But the fact that it's being told to us through a flashback that is being told to Barbosa, I think if it is supposed to be young Barbosa, then yeah, they absolutely miss a chance for Barbosa to have said, I was just buying time. I knew that whole story. I was there.
Yeah, right. That's
and then like
cool.
a cut to, a focus on that character or something.
Yeah, and him like, yeah.
And so the fact that we don't get that like makes it like
even more weird that person looks
it is
sort
a
of
bad,
like Barbosa.
It is
right?
it weakens that scene actually.
It does, and
because
that's what I'm saying.
He's very much like
that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and yet it's still marred by poor execution.
The weird thing too, to like we're all sort of saying is that like he's like that person who either is Barbosa or looks like Barbosa is very much like in the frame. It's not like he's like sort of in the background. Like they very much like sort of center him in the middle of the frame and have Jack like center left kind of thing. So like he's very clearly, and it's like, okay, he's clearly a prominent person with like nothing. We're not gonna go back to it. Okay, cool, I guess. And so like, yeah, it's almost like that was a scene that they had like written and then just didn't make the final cut, and it's just sort of like, oh, okay, like we're leaving it in here though. But I agree, it's a weird moment.
I will say, in terms of like other criticisms, I think this movie has a lot of like the Solo-esque errors. Like it is all right, we're gonna show you the origin of a lot of these other things we didn't really care about. Like the compass has been such a weird mythological thing all this time. So the fact that it's just handed to him from another guy, from a captain,
it's dumb.
It's like, all right, and why does giving that away break the curse and allow Salazar to be freed? Not really.
Don't worry about
it doesn't
right?
break Salazar's curse. It very specifically says basically it curses Jack by unleashing his greatest fear, which is weird because I guess the idea of like a pirate hunter would be his greatest, like the pirate hunter that almost got him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that also, that is never explained by the dying pirate captain. He very much does not say it's going to unleash your greatest fear if you get rid of it, right? So it is like a weird, like, okay, like it's a rule, but he doesn't know that that's what happens if he gets rid of it.
I believe who's the person that says it?
I think Barbosa probably.
Yeah, Barbosa's the one that explains it. He goes, "It sets loose your greatest fear," and the idea that like and I know it makes sense
because he gets it, or is it the witch that says it? Because the witch is the one that gets it.
Yeah, the witch is the one that says it. Then
right. But Jack never knows when he gets rid of it or anything. Yeah,
and it makes sense because Salazar even says like I was one fight away from ending piracy in the Caribbean and like killing all these pirates, and then like the one person, like the one ship that got away ends up like being this thing that harkens back, whatever it might be. The fact that this guy is such a badass pirate hunter that he almost prematurely ended the age of piracy would make him like, yeah, guys, remember Salazar, the guy who almost ended piracy in the Caribbean because he was a fucking monster? Yeah, that sounds awesome. But it's not really well explained or well put in there.
Yeah, even Jack doesn't know that vendetta. Jack
right,
which like initially comes across as like, well, Jack's just drunk, he doesn't remember. But Jack is like, no, I like, and from what we see, like, yeah, he wouldn't have known that was like Salazar or whatever.
He was like 30 years ago.
Yeah,
how was he supposed to remember?
He just remembers a Spaniard and he knows.
Also, to say he can just see that it's a Spanish flag and a dude. He's like, I can't see that guy's face. I'm across a fucking ocean, right? It's like whatever, like.
Yeah. Anyway, any last moments we want to jump on before we dive into our report card and then all of the rankings?
I do want to give a massive shout out to Kaya Scodelario. I think that I think she does a lot to elevate what I don't think is like how do I put this? she does a lot to bring a lot of personality to a role that I don't think had a lot of personality written into it. And I think that she and Jeffrey Rush, I think, end up, even though it doesn't happen until the last third of the movie, they end up becoming this like really great emotional heart for this movie, and end up making like one of my favorite scenes in this entire movie is Jeffrey Rush coming in on the anchor. And just being like the whole, I may not be your father, but I'm your daddy. But it's like, I am your father and your daddy. Like,
which would have just happened 2 weeks earlier in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
So it felt like a real badass moment for him. It felt like a great, like, and him, like, also him, Jack using his foot to get him a sword to do what needs to be done in this final moment of like we're in simpatico. Like we are, I know exactly what you are going to do. Let me give you a help on this.
Yeah, there's a theory out there that is like Jack's final sentiment in this movie is like, I've got a date beyond the horizon or whatever. It's a callback to what Barbossa said to go to at World's End to get Jack back. So the idea is like maybe Jack is going to rescue Barbossa from World's End at the end of this movie.
We don't need to go back to World's End.
That's what, like,
we don't need to go back to World's End.
Sequel would
it's okay. We don't need to go back to World's End. We're good.
It's also, a nice little
gets,
mirroring of their relationship, and I do appreciate that. Like by the end of this whole saga that they've been on together, it's like they've always been frenemies, basically, and they come to an accord, as is often opposed in this movie. Logan, what you gonna say?
No, I just think that, I think viewing this through the totality of these 5 films, right? Like Jack and Barbossa are sort of the spine of this series. And, you rightfully wouldn't have thought that when you watched the first movie because he very much is dead, and the villain, and maybe should have stayed there, right? I mean, it'd be interesting to see like what the Pirates series would have been like without Jeffrey Rush. I mean, I guess 2 sort of give us the best example, maybe a lot less interesting. But it is very interesting to kind of like view the other path without Jeffrey Rush and without Barbossa and Jack's relationship and sort of who they turn him into. But I think this is a movie that does a lot of the best stuff with them, right? Like, I think it gets into the fact that these are almost like star-crossed lovers, right? Who have this sort of like, doomed relationship that like is sort of boom and bust, and they can never really be on the same page for too long, but they just have this weird sort of like magnetic pull to constantly come back and like with each other, which would have, again, made it even better if, like me and Cameron had said, that was Barbossa in the flashback. And it's like right from the very beginning of who Jack is, Barbossa is just like this shadow behind him, plotting his downfall.
Well, a downfall that wouldn't happen for like another 15 years. But
right. But like I think that dynamic is what makes this movie so interesting to me, right? And I think, they let Jeffrey Rush be Jeffrey Rush. They give you a very different form of Jack, and that I think is really fun and interesting. And yeah, like sort of, I think piggybacking off what you said, Trevor, like there's a lot of small things in this movie that I think sort of evoke the first one. Like it is a pale shadow, like a misty shadow on a windscreen of the first movie, but I still think it's probably the closest to the first movie of the 4 movies that follow it in a lot of ways. And it also is probably the best you could want from an ending after everything that followed the first movie, in terms of like giving us the endings we want for a lot of the characters involved in the original trilogy, or in Jack and Barbossa's case, who've kind of continued going onwards, right? And I think, that those are the moments that I really like, right? And we'll get into more in the ranking here in a second, but yeah.
One last little thing that I will say, because I hated it all through the movie, and if I never have to watch a movie where like a woman is just like completely dismissed because she's a witch. If I never have to watch that again, I'll be happy. Like that being like the runner and why she's constantly dismissed through this movie. I was just like, God, all these people are just so stupid.
Also, this movie got like somehow way more sexualized. Like way more, like not even like vague references to sex stuff anymore. It's just straight up there. Like one guy's like, yeah, I definitely had sex with that guy's mom because she was a whore, and I can confirm she's a great whore.
Yeah, there was definitely a change in the humor of this one, like all of the horology jokes and stuff like that. It was like, yeah, they definitely like just full on leaned into innuendo territory, which has not really been where this had mined its humor from in the past.
Not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but it's also like, I don't know, like, do they think horologist is like the long form and like whore is just the like abbreviated form of what that word is? Like, it was also like none of them were like questioned that for a second. They were like, oh, that means okay, sure. And it's like, I feel like you would have heard that in your line of work before now.
Yeah.
If that was what it was actually called.
Well, pirates are dumb. So
there you go. We learned.
But so are also just British officers. Also, I really did not like the length of the like bank heist and the execution of it. That was another, like,
I agree.
Especially I think it's weird because like immediately it evokes Fast Five, and Fast Five does it way better because it's a high speed chase through Rio de Janeiro with cars dragging a bank. Yeah. This is the Red Dead Redemption version of that, of them riding a building on horseback through, and like you from the jump with the thing open, you know exactly where it's going to end. By the time they get to their destination, all of the treasure is going to be out of that thing. And sure enough, like we just spend 20 minutes going through a very predictable sequence. So I did not like that. It very much did get off to a rocky start. But I think sequence wise, to your point earlier, Cameron, I appreciated that I would not have liked it if that had been the start of this movie. The fact that the start of this movie is the prologue with this kid that we don't know going out and basically trying to drown himself to get to the Dutchman to meet his dad. Will is like okay.
It's okay, Trevor. He plotted out where his dad would be at the exact moment that he would come this close to the land.
I mean, I get that none of that makes sense, but like it's still an interesting, like,
it's more fun character introduction. Fun character introduction, telling us where this family's situation is at.
Yeah, because like, and it was something because I'd started doing the doc and stuff beforehand. I knew that like that was the gist of where this movie was going. So like seeing in that like opening little montage as he's getting ready, like, you know, years of dad's curse or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, this is Will and Elizabeth's kid. Okay. Anyway, so I appreciated that, like, he felt like he was coming from a place that made sense. Anyway, let's dive into the report card. We grade from A+ to F. Cameron, we'll get you out of the way first. What do you want to give this one?
D-.
A D-. Okay, not a full-blown F. I was expecting full-blown F from you.
When you have, my biggest problem with this movie is that there's a lot of cool ideas and a lot of cool concepts going on. The execution is just flawed from top to bottom on so many levels. But despite that, I still think that I don't know if there's a salvageable movie in this movie for me, but I think that, like, goddamn, get the same stuff and just give it another shot. I kind of want to say, like, granted, it's never going to happen in a billion years, but like, this really could have been great. Maybe they should have done like better drafts. I don't know what to tell you. It's just a D-. It's poor execution on really good stuff.
All right. Logan.
I'm going to give it a C.
Okay.
I think, you know, there are a lot of issues with it. I think it's, you know, I said this last week, but like, I think the CGI in 4 and 5 looks worse than the CGI in 1, 2, and 3. I don't necessarily know the reasons behind that, but I think these movies look less good in terms of.
I mean, my guess would be they're having to fight for CG resources with all of the superhero movies now.
Sure, right, and that's probably, you know, not an available point. And there also might just be an element of like them just being less practical compared to like the first one in particular seems very practical, right? And a lot of it doesn't have giant fucking Kraken monsters, so that helps too.
Yeah, I don't know if this one, if these last two featured ILM, but obviously, like we talked about in Dead Man's Chest, ILM like worked on that one, won the Oscar for it.
And Davy, and we I just had a conversation again. Like Davy Jones, I think still looks incredible 15 years later. Like he looks so good, right? And I think that's missing a little bit here in some moments. But I just think it's a really fun movie for the most part, right? Like it's not perfect. There are a lot of flaws. There are a lot of issues. But I do think it is the ending I would want for Pirates, right? I mean, you know, I don't think we're probably going to get another Pirates movie, at least not this saga Pirates film. And this is sort of what I wanted from 3, right? We get Will and Elizabeth together. Finally, the curse is broken. They can just spend the rest of our lives together. You know, Barbossa goes down in a sacrifice, so he actually like stays dead, and like it means something. And like again, literally for the first time since Black Pearl, Jack is on his ship. He's the captain of his ship for the first time in 4 movies, and it's great, right? Like I said it to Shravia too. Like, you know, the real love story of Pirates of the Caribbean is Jack and the Black Pearl. They're the ones who can't be together for so many movies that he just constantly chase. All he wants is to be with the ship, and it's sort of weirdly romantic, and it works. And yeah, like it's the ending I wanted 2 movies ago, and yeah, I think to see, you know, I think it is. I'm jumping ahead again, Trevor, but like I think it is my 3rd favorite Pirates movie. And yeah, I think it's flawed, but it's fun, and I think I enjoyed this, you know, beat to beat, moment to moment more than I expected going into it, and more than some other movies.
Yeah. I'm probably C- myself.
Totally fair.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you touched on. And I think we didn't talk about it a lot, or it got brought up a little bit here and there. But I think one of the issues, you know, we talked about in the last movie was like, it's really weird that this guy who's best known for Chicago is coming in and directing this, you know, action blockbuster movie. I think they at least like managed. I think the last movie was, you know, more interestingly, more dynamically shot. Whereas, yeah, there were a lot of things in this movie, to what Cameron brought up earlier. Like, these directors were not the directors to bring in for a high speed action, you know, on the seas swashbuckling adventure movie. I think their inexperience weakens the visual look of a lot of this movie. But there's still, and also I think like the writing also weakens a lot of the elements of this movie. But there were gems there, and there are you know, moments and shining beacons and stuff. And yeah, I think when you were talking about like, this is the ending that we wanted to see for these characters in At World's End, I had this flash in my mind of like, it's like they basically just took another stab to like make an end for that story that like was the happy ending. And in my mind, I'm like, so how long until Disney does that for Rise of Skywalker? To basically be like, hey, all that stuff we did that made no sense. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. That's what Dave Filoni's doing with all of his Mandoverse shows. They're trying to like justify and
not
fix
even that, but I mean,
stuff.
if the, you know, Daisy Ridley Star Wars movie actually happens, that's what I bet. Like, I bet you they're gonna do some retconning. I bet you they're gonna fix some shit, probably. Yeah. Just kidding. I meant you were a different Palpatine. Oh, what you in? That's like, and I think it was Eric Goldman had a tweet of like, I bet you $1 million they never say her last name in that movie if it actually happens. Like, they don't say Palpatine, they don't say Skywalker. She's just Rey. They don't say the last name once. And it's like, yeah, like.
Speaking of that, we had another, you know, moment where Disney is obsessed with last names, where Karina Smith changes her name to Barbossa. At the end there. So yeah, C- from me. Not. And we'll talk about it in the rankings overall, but like I definitely had a more enjoyable time with this than some of the movies we've had. It's definitely a movie I never need to watch again. This was an interesting one. We talked about it in like previous episodes. This was all of our first time watching this one, as opposed to we'd seen all of the rest of the series before, obviously. So it was like I don't regret that we spent 2 hours watching the movie.
No, not at all.
Cameron might, but I don't. It was a fine. Well, no, I know Cameron does. Cameron was very angry about having done this entire saga of Pirates movies.
It's accurate.
When we finished this, there was a rage. But yeah, I'm like, it's fine. I now never need to go back and rewatch any save the first Pirates.
First is so good though.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, the first one's the only one that ever needs to be seen by anybody.
There you go. So let's go ahead and rank them scallywags, where we're adding Javier Bardem's Salazar into the mix here. Number one, we had Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, the writers.
It's not the real number one.
Yeah, not the real number one. I'll go ahead and delete that out for you.
They're not scallywags; they just suck.
Barbosa is our number one. Blackbeard number two, Davy Jones number three, and Cutler Beckett number four. Where do we want to throw Salazar into the mix?
I always forget about him.
My thing about it is I don't know if Salazar is actually like a scallywag.
He is, yes.
Cameron's going to get semantical about the...
Yeah, no, I was about to, and then I realized at the very end he turns out to be like an absolute scallywag.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd probably rank him number 4 after Davy Jones.
Really?
Yeah, he just doesn't have, like, Davy Jones in 2 is frightening and scary and really, really damn good. Like, Davy Jones is, like, the fact that Davy Jones is number 3 on that list is solely because of how neutered he was in 3.
Oh, no, Blackbeard's in that. Yeah.
Blackbeard's number 2.
Yeah.
The only reason he's may not be number 1 is because of how absolutely neutered he was in number 3. So for me, Salazar is like, I think Salazar's great, but I think once again, execution on Salazar just isn't phenomenal. And Davy Jones is.
It's interesting for me because this is one of the tie breaks that I lost, right? Where like,
I would have Davy Jones above Blackbeard.
Right. And so for me, like, I think Salazar is better than Blackbeard, but I don't think he's better than Davy Jones, right? So it's like, it's a weird ranking situation for me of like, on my list, he would be 3rd, right? Because I do think he's better than Blackbeard because I didn't like Blackbeard as much as the 2B did. And I think Davy Jones is so good for pretty much all the reasons Cameron said in 2. So it's tricky, right? I mean, again, on my personal list, he'd be 3rd. So take that for whatever. I mean, he's definitely above Beckett, right? I mean, at worst, he's going to be 4th. Barbosa is ultimately going to take this top spot. I'm half tempted to say that it's pretty close for me between Salazar and Davy Jones at times, because I think Salazar is really interesting, like I said, in how just like rage like inducing he is and how like anger filled he is and how he is just so singular minded that he sort of becomes the very thing he's fighting against, right? Like a better film would have done a lot of stuff with that, I think, and explored that trend, a lot of like him kind of becoming the monster that he was fighting. This movie doesn't do that, but like, depending on where Trevor's at with things, I'm okay having him as high as 2nd or as low as 4th, right?
I think I'm going to go ahead and slot him into 4th there, above Beckett, below Davy Jones. Kind of speaking to what you touched on there. I think I will say, like, I think the first 4 on this list are all great. With Barbosa being there's
a seismic gap between anyone and Beckett, right?
Like Barbosa is the S tier, like of the baddies, and then Blackbeard, Davy Jones, Salazar are all like any given day. One of them is going to be like great. I think for the sake of like long term, like I'll go back and remember. I think I'm going to remember Blackbeard and Davy Jones more. Yeah. In large part, but again, I like Salazar is one of the things I really really enjoyed about this movie.
Yes.
From his like in almost every sense. He's one of the things I loved the execution of. Even, but yeah, like comparing him to Blackbeard and Davy Jones, I think. Like, he's not as fun and sinister as Blackbeard was. He is just a bad dude who is on a quest for revenge. And that's like his driving force. So yeah, I think I'll slot him in there at number 4. And then, it's a chasm down to Cutler Beckett, who's just sucks.
I forget it exists every time until we do this list again. I'm like, oh right, he was the villain in Thor.
I will say when we're discussing this, it's very clear that the true Pirate of the Caribbean is Barbossa.
Yeah.
His relationship also with Jack is the like you said, Logan, is the spine that carries these movies through. The fact that they could be the frenemies, as Trevor put it, relationship that carries this saga to its conclusion. But Barbossa just stands out anytime he's on screen. Jeffrey Rush is just an incredible jewel of a human being and actor and delivering us this performance. And man, it's great.
They're great. They're the great two sides of the same coin kind of thing. And like, it is, we didn't really talk about it all, but like in like the summation of the series, like one of the things that I think, in one, what I think makes Jack and Barbossa and that dynamic really interesting is that like, these are two men who are equals, right? They're each really clever and really smart. And they go about that in very different ways, right? Like, I think Barbossa is someone who is sort of more pompousy and more of sort of like grabs the limelight and wants to kind of be the one with a microphone in his hand kind of thing. And Jack, I think, is totally content to play the fool, but is really clever, right? And is sort of thinking like 3 steps ahead. And I think one of the things that 2, 3, 4, and 5, to an extent, all sort of misread is that like, oh, Jack is an idiot who just sort of gets lucky. And it's like, no, he very much is like thinking these things through and is playing the fool, but very much is not one. And I think that, God, one does it so well. And I think their dynamic in 1 is so good because they are sort of on the same wavelength. Whereas I think 3, 4, and 5 sort of make it seem like Jack is sort of an idiot who wants to be a great pirate, but maybe isn't. It sort of like lucks his way into being one, and Barbossa like actually is, and it's sort of unfortunate. But yeah, Barbossa is definitely S tier, like Trevor said.
Yeah. Rank that booty. We have the Trident of Poseidon for this one. Where are you putting this one, Logan?
This is an easy 4. I couldn't. It's like so whatever to me. Like part of that is because like, look, Dead Man's Chest is admittedly not great. But they at least give it 2 movies of being like, it's important for 2 movies. So you're like, all right, it's at least important. I understand that. Whereas here, it's like they introduce it pretty late into the movie of what we're actually like chasing for, and like
no, they introduce it at the very beginning. Really the will scene with Henry is literally, we just got to find the Trident of Poseidon. That's the truth. I think the thing about it, like,
but I feel like they don't talk about it again for like 30 minutes after that. Then.
No, they do. They talk about it throughout the entire movie.
I side with you both. They do talk about it,
yes,
but it doesn't have the weight or importance. And
not at all.
It is very much it's like
so whatever. Yeah.
When we see the trident, I was like, "That's what it looks like. That's right. The thing." All right.
Yep.
You also how shitty the treasure is when the key to getting it is just now break it.
Yeah.
And that's the reward. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a weird.
Well, they don't explain. They just like try. It's like, well, why is this trident important? It contains all the curses of the sea. Okay, and then they show it, and it's just a
divide.
And then they show it, and it's just a shitty trident. And it's like
it's a wand, basically. They're just fucking moving water with, and it's like, okay.
I didn't go back and like look closely at it, but is it even a trident? Does it even have 3 prongs?
It has 3 prongs. Okay. I double checked on it because for a second it looked like a bident.
Yeah.
For a long second, and then you see the third one poking out. It's a shitty trident.
And they fucking did that with Aquaman, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just completely didn't know.
Aquaman's trident's a bident in the movie?
In one of that, or like, in at least one of the movies, Aquaman definitely does not have a trident, though they name it a trident, but like it either is a bident or it has like 5 prongs or something like that. It's like they definitely it's definitely one of those things that CinemaSins probably had a field day with.
I'm sure.
Anyway, Trident of Poseidon also bottom of my list as well. Cam, I'm assuming you're in the same.
Oh yeah,
boat.
100%. Yeah. They mentioned it Trevor, 100%. They mention it a lot. It's not important.
Yeah.
It's not given its importance, and it's bad.
It is very much like there's a lot of this movie that is like they were building the train tracks as the train was going, and that felt like another one of them of like, okay, like, oh, now we have to like get to the trident. Okay, well, what does the trident do? Well, if you break it, it releases all of the curses of the sea. It's like, but the beginning of the movie, you said it holds the power of the sea. And when he's first using it, like it's shooting it's shooting a wand of water, and that's like the power of the sea. And then suddenly it's like, oh, it's actually got all the they're just making up the rules on that one.
It's bad. It's bad, and they shouldn't, like, it's just bad.
But we do have some ships to rank now. We have the Silent Mary, that is Salazar's ship. We have, like, I didn't even realize it was the Queen Anne's Revenge until, like, I went back and looked it up. But, like, Barbossa's ship at the beginning is once again the Queen Anne's Revenge. I'm not going to, we don't really have anything to add in that one. We have the Wicked Wench, if we want to count it from the flashback.
It's just the Black Pearl.
Yeah. And then we have the Dying Gull. So really, I'm going to say the Silent Mary and Dying Gull are the two we have to rank. As a reminder, our rankings are Queen Anne's Revenge at number 1 from the last movie, then the Flying Dutchman, then the Black Pearl, then number 4 is the High Peng from At World's End, the Interceptor and Endeavor, Dauntless, all of them Imperial ships, and then lastly the Empress, which I believe was the ship that takes them to World's End.
Yes.
Which just had a cool look for when they do the flip upside down image. That's the only reason it's on this list. So let's do the Silent Mary first, Salazar's ship. Where do we want to throw that? I'll kick it off, and I would say for me it would be in like the conversation of the top 4 at least.
I would agree.
Alongside,
I would agree.
Like it's it is the like ethereal, otherworldly, mystical powers alongside Queen Anne's Revenge and Flying Dutchman. So like and yeah, I just really enjoy how it like engulfs its prey. So I would be.
I especially really like it when we get to see it in its full glory, when it was a completed ship, and it's this like awesome massive ship, and then you get to see like its hollowed out shell afterwards that uses, like you said, prey upon things. I really think it's cool. Yeah. I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's cooler than the Black Pearl.
Yeah, that's probably where I would put it. Is 3 below the Flying Dutchman and Queen Anne's Revenge. How about you, Logan?
This is the second of 3 tiebreaks that I lost. So again,
You wouldn't have the Queen Anne's Revenge as high?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's ahead of the Queen Anne's Revenge, but I think it's below the Dutchman and Pearl. So ultimately, I'm content with it being 3rd as well.
Black Pearl's a cool ship, but it's just a cool black pirate ship with like some tattered
I like the
sails.
fact that we get the Black Pearl back again. Like
Yes,
I just had this thought while watching this movie or reading that list, like, we really get so little of the Black Pearl in the entire series, actually. Like, it basically is in, like, the first one, some of the second one, and then some of the, like, a very small amount of the 5th one. And that's basically it. And it's, like, very odd that we get such a small amount of it.
Yeah. Well, we get it in the third movie as well. It comes back from World's End with
right,
Jack.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's like Jack is on it, and it's the ship that they sail out of World's End. So
Yeah, that's like an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
They're in World's End for a while, Trevor.
yeah, no, that's fair. And to one of the points you were bringing up in the earlier in the show, Jack is captain of the ship coming out of World's End, so he has been captain of the Black Pearl again,
But not at the end of each movie.
right, yeah, no,
Right.
okay.
That's the
So that's
quote
what you're
unquote
saying.
joke.
Takes it at the end of 3. Barbarossa takes it at the end of 3,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Sorry, I thought when you were saying it, like it was the first time he's been captain of the Black Pearl since the first movie. I thought you were saying that, and so I was just trying to correct
Since like the end of each like movie, right? Yeah.
my misconception of what you're saying.
No, yeah, you're totally fine.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, he does lose it to Barbossa, of course. And so then,
which is the Dying Gull?
the Dying Gull is the ship Jack has in this one.
Put it above all the Imperial ships.
Yeah.
Just because of the name. The name's great. It says what it is on the box. It's perfect.
So, I mean, like it is barely a ship. It barely holds his crew. I would be inclined to put it below all of the Imperial ships and just above the
I'm more
Empress.
tempted by Trevor's argument. Right?
That's fair.
It's actually
I just like
Interceptor and Endeavor get moments in Black Pearl, right? That,
yeah,
like,
it's fair.
can
I think
remember.
that's fair. I'm okay with that. My thing is, I like that it says exactly what it is on the box. Like, it is a dying gull. It is a shitty ship, and I love that about it.
Yeah. All right, then we're down to our ranking of the films. Here's where we, and I think this is another argument that Logan lost, but Curse of the Black Pearl are easy number one, unanimous number one across the board.
Yes.
Cameron and I liked On Stranger Tides last time more than Logan did, so it made it to number 2. Then we have At World's End at number 3 and Dead Man's Chest at the bottom of the barrel. Cameron, I'm guessing you would put this at the bottom of everything.
This is going to be, I think, the most interesting one. I think we all might have it in different spots.
I would probably put this. I mean, yeah, I didn't like Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, so this ends up being number 3 for me. So where do you want to put it?
Works
Logan?
out. It's also number 3 for me, right? I mean, again, in a different order. Obviously, I have it ahead of Dead Man's Chest and Stranger Tides, and below Curse of Black Pearl and At World's End, but it would also be my number 3 as well.
Yeah. So there we go. Curse of the Black Pearl is our easy number 1, our unanimous number 1. Then On Stranger Tides took number 2 because Cameron and I liked that one better. Dead Men Tell No Tales takes number 3 with Logan and I getting it there. At World's End at number 4.
Shout out to us Duncan on that original trilogy.
Sorry?
2 and 3. I said shout out to us Duncan on 2 and 3 for the original trilogy.
At World's End and Dead Man's Chest rounding out at number 4 and number 5. And really, like, I would say number 1 is the only good one of this series for me. I don't know where you fell on the sequels there, Logan. I guess like you liked At World's End maybe better than Cameron and I did.
I think At World's End is, again, I would say it's a good movie. I'd be okay saying that.
I would not.
So I think there are 2 and like a half good movies here, right? But like also I would say, you know, to a larger point that Cameron sort of talked about, like I have I'm glad we watched all these movies again, right? Like if for no other reason, like I think these movies are fun, right? Like they're not necessarily great by any means after the first one, but like I think this is a fun experiment to go back through and watch all 5 Pirates movies again, right? Like Trevor said, I don't know how often I'll go back to 4 and 5 again, but I'll go back to 1 a lot, and maybe even, you know, 2 and 3 just to like do like a trilogy watch kind of thing. But like, yeah, like I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed getting to revisit all these movies, some of which I haven't seen in like a decade, right, or more. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the whole experience.
All right. Well, extra credit, other suggestions. If you do like Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, Disney Plus will recommend the other Pirates movies, Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Man's Chest, At World's End, and On Stranger Tides. And then, as with the last, pretty much all of these, I think, it's the live-action Mulan, National Treasure, Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and The Princess Bride. Speaking of, so next week we're going to do Mandalorian Season 3 wrap-up, and then basically as a make-good to Cameron and how mad he was after we finished this one, I was like, hey, we haven't done Princess Bride. You love Princess Bride. How about we do that in 2 weeks after we do Mandalorian? So that's what we are going to do. And then we'll have Star Wars Visions come in there with May the 4th day. So that's kind of what our upcoming slate is going to look like. Mandalorian Season 3 next week, Princess Bride in 2 weeks, and then some Star Wars Visions after that. Extracurriculars, anybody watching anything else on Disney+? Cameron, you've been catching up on Mandalorian. Did you watch this week's episode?
I have yet to watch this week's episode. I'm excited to watch it later.
Okay. I did watch this week's episode. I'm all caught up there. Also, since our last episode, since we did that a couple weeks ago, I caught up on all this season of the Bad Batch. Interesting final third of the Bad Batch series there, tying into kind of where they're going to be seemingly going in their third and final season coming up. So there's that. Also, I sat down and watched Coco because Coco's great, and and I was in the mood for some Coco.
You're in the mood to cry?
It was largely like, so from my recent Disney trip, I sat down and watched I watched the fireworks show and then the World of Color show over at California Adventure, and both of them are brand new shows, and they also have just a ton of like musical cues and stuff. And so like they sparked like I haven't watched that in a while, or I haven't thought about that in a while. So they sparked some rewatches. So yeah, I just threw on Coco, had it playing in the background while I was doing some other stuff, and yeah, just enjoyed Coco. So shout out to that. How about you, Logan? You watch anything else on Disney Plus?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this Pirates of the Caribbean saga that we have now wrapped up and can put to bed. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Loggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
A shout out to Trevor Starkey playing through Breath of the Wild again. Him putting himself through that just for your content, view, and pleasure. He did it. I think as of we record this today, was the episode where you beat Ganon, where you beat the game.
No. That is still to come. I have in like our timeline beaten it. The episode that went live today is like going into Goron City to go off against like the second. But in my tweet today, I highlighted that all of the episodes moving forward will time out so that I will beat Ganon basically right before Tears of the Kingdom comes out.
There you go.
So that's
but go check that out. Go check out Trevor playing through Breath of the Wild. Our thoughts on that game are well documented at that nerdy site for myself and Trevor. But we're doing it for your content, view, and pleasure. So go watch it.
There you go. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, Trevor and I just got back into doing Elden Ring Let's Plays again. They've been a lot of fun since we got back to them. And yeah, just go check them out. We did return.
I mean, content-wise, we never took a break. But
that's true.
We had recorded a few weeks ahead, and we finally came back to the game in our time this week in order to get new episodes up on that schedule. So yes, we returned to Elden Ring after a month away, but if you've been watching our Let's Plays, you never missed a beat.
That's true. Sorry. I should have specified that specifically. We got back to doing the Let's Plays.
Yeah. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to all of those shout-outs, I will shout out Cameron's Jedi Fallen Order series, which you can go watch on Wednesdays on youtube.com/thatnerdysite, as well as our recent run of That Nerdy Site shows. We did, a couple weeks ago, we did the D&D spoiler cast for Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. And then this last week, we talked about the Super Mario Brothers movie, which we all really enjoyed. Logan wasn't on the Super Mario Brothers movie with us, but he also really enjoyed it. So I did convey that in our spoiler cast. So yeah, go check out all of that stuff. Basically, we got something for you Monday through Friday on youtube.com/thatnerdysite, be it podcasts or Let's Plays. And then also I will give one last shout out to, I finally last week threw out all of my best of 2022 lists that I had not finished writing up. So you can go watch, you can go read my thoughts on my favorite games of last year, my favorite movies, as well as my favorite platinum trophies, and a new list of my favorite actual play series, like Dimension 20 and Critical Role and stuff like that. So yeah, go check out all of that stuff from us. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and really bad eggs.